For 30 years, bodybuilders have avoided cardio the way a patient avoids a diagnosis they suspect, but do not want confirmed. The fear is muscle loss. The irony is that the research points in the opposite direction, and the cost of avoiding cardio is not a bigger physique, it is a smaller one. A 2019 meta-analysis in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, covering 21 studies and 743 subjects, found that concurrent training produced equal or greater lean mass gains in 17 of those 21 comparisons when cardio was programmed correctly. The word correctly is doing all the work in that sentence. This is not a video about running more. It is a video about why cardio done wrong kills muscle, and cardio done right builds the engine that makes hypertrophy possible in the first place. First, the myth that cardio and muscle growth are opposing forces is one of the most persistent misreadings of exercise physiology in recreational training. It originated from a real phenomenon called the interference effect, first described by Hickson in 1980, where concurrent training reduced strength gains in subjects who performed both modalities at high frequency and high volume simultaneously. What gym culture took from that paper is that cardio and lifting should never share a training block. What the paper actually showed is that interference occurs under a specific set of conditions, specifically when aerobic volume is excessive, when sessions are scheduled too close together, and when recovery is not accounted for. The 1980 Hickson subjects were performing 6 days of resistance training per week alongside 6 days of running and cycling. That is not a training program. That is an overreaching protocol. A 2012 systematic review by Wilson and colleagues in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found that interference is negligible when aerobic sessions are kept below 20 to 30 minutes of moderate intensity, placed at least 6 hours away from resistance sessions, and programmed no more than 3 times per week. Under those conditions, the effect on hypertrophy disappears. Lifters who avoid all cardio because of a 1980 study they have never read are managing a risk that does not exist at their training volume. Cardio does not kill muscle. Too much cardio, too close to lifting with too little recovery does. If this is already changing how you think about your training week, subscribe and stay through argument 3, because the mechanism cardio actually uses to support muscle growth is one most lifters have never been told exists. Second, the deeper issue is what chronic cardio avoidance does to the cardiovascular system and what a compromised cardiovascular system does to muscle growth. Skeletal muscle hypertrophy requires oxygen delivery, nutrient transport, and waste product clearance at a rate that scales with training intensity. All 3 of those processes depend on capillary density and cardiac output. A 2015 review published in Acta Physiologica established that resistance training alone produces minimal change in capillary density within muscle tissue, while aerobic training increases capillary density by 5 to 20% depending on mode, duration, and individual baseline. More capillaries per muscle fiber means more surface area for oxygen exchange, more glucose uptake during and after training, and faster clearance of metabolic byproducts like lactate and hydrogen ions during high rep sets. A lifter who has avoided cardio for 3 years has lower capillary density than a lifter who has done 2 sessions of moderate aerobic work per week across the same period. During a hard set of 10 to 15 reps on the leg press, that deficit appears as local muscular fatigue arriving earlier than it should, pump fading faster than it should, and recovery between sets being slower than it should. The muscle is structurally capable of more work. The delivery system is the bottleneck. Aerobic training is infrastructure investment. It does not build the house. It lays the pipes that allow the house to be built faster and maintained longer. Third, there is a molecular conflict between aerobic and resistance adaptations that runs deeper than most training guides acknowledge, and it is the real reason the interference effect exists at the cellular level. Endurance training activates AMP-activated protein kinase, abbreviated AMPK, a cellular energy sensor that responds to sustained energy depletion by promoting mitochondrial biogenesis and fatty acid oxidation. Resistance training activates mTORC1, the mechanistic target of rapamycin complex 1, which drives protein synthesis and hypertrophy. The conflict is that AMPK can directly inhibit mTORC1 signaling when both are active simultaneously. A 2011 study by Coffey and colleagues in the Journal of Applied Physiology showed that AMPK activity remained elevated for 3 hours following a 60-minute aerobic session. And during that 3-hour window, mTORC1 signaling in response to a subsequent resistance session was blunted by approximately 30%. This is the molecular basis of the interference effect. It is real, it is measurable, and it is also completely avoidable. The 3-hour window is the key. Separating your aerobic session from your resistance session by at least 3 hours, and ideally 6, allows AMPK to return to baseline before mTORC1 needs to fire. Lifters who run on the treadmill for 45 minutes and then immediately squat are not maximizing hypertrophy. Lifters who cycle at moderate intensity in the morning and lift in the evening are experiencing essentially no molecular interference at all. Fourth, the long-term cost of avoiding cardio accumulates in a way that is not visible in the short term, but becomes structural after 2 to 3 years of training. The most direct cost is recovery capacity. Cardio adaptations, specifically increased stroke volume, improved heart rate recovery, and enhanced mitochondrial density in skeletal muscle, directly reduce the time needed between hard training sets and between hard training sessions. A 2016 study in the European Journal of Applied Physiology found that lifters with higher VO2 max recovered between sets 18 to 27% faster than lifters with low aerobic fitness performing the same resistance training protocol. Faster recovery between sets means more productive sets per session. More productive sets per session means more weekly volume. More weekly volume, when recoverable, is the single most reliable driver of long-term hypertrophy, according to the dose-response data summarized by Schoenfeld in his 2017 meta-analysis in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research. The lifter who avoids cardio does not just lose cardiovascular fitness, they cap their ceiling for productive volume because their recovery machinery is underdeveloped. At 6 months, this costs a few sessions. At 2 years, the cumulative volume deficit is substantial. At 5 years, 2 lifters who started on the same day with identical genetics and identical lifting programs will show divergence in lean mass that traces back to one variable. One of them invested 90 minutes per week in aerobic capacity, the other did not. Fifth, the turning point in understanding cardio and muscle growth is recognizing that mitochondria are not just aerobic organelles. They are recovery engines for the entire cell, including the contractile machinery that lifts weights. Research from Hood and colleagues at Queen's University, published in 2016 in Applied Physiology, Nutrition, and Metabolism, demonstrated that higher mitochondrial density in skeletal muscle correlates directly with faster clearance of reactive oxygen species after intense resistance training, more efficient ATP regeneration between sets, and lower levels of post-exercise interleukin-6, a marker of muscle damage and systemic inflammation. Mitochondrial density is increased primarily by aerobic training. This means that when a lifter adds moderate cardio to their program, they are not trading muscle for endurance. They are upgrading the cellular environment in which every rep of every lifting session takes place. The muscle recovers faster after each set because the powerhouse running cleanup is more capable. The muscle grows faster over months because the inflammatory response to each session is lower, and the protein synthesis window is less interrupted by residual damage. Cardio is not the enemy of the muscle cell, it is the support system running inside it. Sixth, the actionable resolution requires programming cardio with 4 specific constraints that preserve hypertrophy while building the aerobic infrastructure that supports it. First, keep aerobic sessions to 20 to 30 minutes of moderate intensity, defined as 60 to 70% of maximum heart rate, which for most people is a pace where conversation is possible but requires mild effort. This intensity activates mitochondrial adaptations without generating the AMPK spike that interferes with mTORC1. Second, separate cardio from lifting by a minimum of 3 hours. Ideally, cardio belongs in the morning and resistance training in the afternoon or evening, aligning with the circadian peak in strength output. Third, use low-impact modalities. Cycling, rowing, and incline walking generate aerobic adaptation with minimal eccentric muscle damage, meaning they do not add meaningful mechanical fatigue to the legs before a squat session the way running does. Fourth, program 2 aerobic sessions per week as the starting point, not more. Wilson's 2012 data established that 2 to 3 sessions is the range where aerobic benefits accumulate without interference costs appearing. Start at 2, run that protocol for 8 weeks, and assess recovery between sets as the primary metric of success. If rest periods are shortening and top set performance is stable or improving, the infrastructure is working. The objective is not a cardiovascular fitness number. The objective is a muscle that recovers faster, handles more volume, and grows for longer before stalling. The 1980 Hickson subjects ran and cycled 6 days a week on top of 6 days of lifting and still got stronger, just not as fast. The real lesson was never avoid cardio. It was dose and timing matter. They always did.